and welcome to the Morning Minute. Have you ever heard anyone use the expression out of the mouth of babes? Many people would say that it means a child has said something that was wise, probably wise beyond their years. A parent or a grandparent, maybe even a teacher, could probably cite you many examples of when they've heard a child say something and that phrase pops into their head. Well, there's a man named Daniel Watts, and he works for a group called Every Generation Ministries. They work in several countries, and they specialize in working with children to bring them to Christ. Well, he said that he was having a particularly difficult situation one time while he was ministering in Poland, and was sitting at his kitchen table moaning and groaning about it, when his 5-year-old looked at him and said, "Maybe we should pray about it." Well, Daniel said that since he was the dad, that should have been his line. But in that instance, God used her, a 5-year-old, to teach him. Well, the phrase, out of the mouth of babes, actually comes from the Bible. It's in the New Testament and the Old Testament. In the book of Psalms, chapter 8, verse 2, it has God ordaining strength out of the mouth of babes. And even when Jesus cleared the temple and cleansed the temple, as written in the book of Matthew, he referred back to that verse in the book of Psalms. So on our morning minutes, we've been talking about being disciples. And because the children's department is so important to me, I started thinking about how are we making disciples out of our children and our youth. Now, there are several places in the New Testament that tell us how working with children was a priority to Jesus. Let me just read an instance to you. From the book of Luke, chapter 18, verse 15 and 16. People were also bringing babies to Jesus for him to place his hands on them. And when the disciples saw this, they rebuked them. But Jesus called the children to him and said, "Let the little children come to me, and do not hinder them, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these." Well, what does that mean to me, and what do I believe that it should mean to our church? I believe that we have to share the Lord's love of our children and give them importance in our ministry. You know, children don't hold back whenever they are showing their love for Jesus. Just watch some of the videos of our youth and the children whenever they're helping with one of our services. Watch some of those videos that Elizabethtown Christian Academy puts on Facebook, and listen to a 13-year-old young lady who praises God and worships through an organ, a piano, and her singing. So where do the children learn to worship like this? You know, as I think about it, especially with a teaching background, children are amazing imitators. I've heard people say things like, "Well, that's got to be so-and-so's child because she walks and talks just like her mom," or "That child's the spitting image of his daddy, he acts just like him." Well, you know, those phrases are spot on because children are best at imitation. They learn from examples, and most importantly, they model the behaviors of others. So the question is, as a church, what behaviors are we modeling? What are the children learning about discipleship from us? We should not negate the importance of the spiritual life of our children and the youth. It's the responsibility of the whole church to help make them disciples. Think about the story in the Bible that we find in 1 Samuel 3:1 to 4:1. Samuel was just a small child, yet God spoke directly to him, and then he gave Samuel this huge responsibility of speaking for him. Can you imagine? He was to speak for God. But what if his mom had not believed in the importance of children to God and neglected to take Samuel to be taught by Eli? Things would have been different. Even Paul speaks directly to children in Ephesians chapter 6, verses 1 through 3. It says, "Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with a promise, so that it may go well with you and you may enjoy long life on earth." So let's remember, it's not just the responsibility of the parents, the Sunday school teachers, the youth ministers, to be the role models for our children. Everyone our children meets in the church, and even when they meet the church people in other settings, we all have that responsibility. It's a precious responsibility to always treat every child as a spiritual person, just like God does. Children can follow Christ, they can become like him, and they can be used by him. Children can become disciples. Well, discipleship is what they were created for. Let's all do our part and work on ourselves to be the disciple we should be, so that we can step up and be a worthy model for the children to follow. Amen? Be a blessing and be blessed.